Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Ruben. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning,
Good
Rafai.
morning, Adefemi. How are you today?
I'm okay, thank you. As you know, I had a wonderful weekend.
Yes, I saw that.
So here we are. We've managed. We've made it through to another Monday. Good morning to you all. Let's take a look at what's happening around the world. It's been 1 year since Hamas fighters crossed over a thinly guarded border from Gaza to Israel's Negev desert during a music festival, and killed a total of about 1,200 people. 251 others were kidnapped and taken as hostages. Of the 251 abducted people, 154 have been freed or rescued, and 97 remain in Gaza, including 33 believed to be dead, according to Israel. Now, aside from the majority believed to be killed by Hamas, Israel accidentally shot 3 who had escaped in December and believes it killed 3 others in an airstrike around the same time. On Sunday, thousands of people joined a vigil in an area of Tel Aviv known as Hostages Square, where survivors of the October 7 attacks and the families of some of those who were killed spoke out. Now, since October 7th, 2023, Israel has inflicted devastating bombardment on the Palestinians in Gaza. Nearly 42,000 people, mostly civilians, have been killed. And that's according to the Hamas-run health ministry over in Gaza. Now, much of Gaza is in ruins, and Palestinians, along with many voices around the world, accuse Israel of genocide. Staying in the Middle East now, and multiple blasts have shaken the southern suburbs of Lebanon's capital, Beirut, amid Israeli airstrikes on the night before the anniversary of this October 7 Hamas attack against Israel. The attacks have come after Israel issued new evacuation orders in southern Lebanon. Israel, too, it is worthy of us noting. There is information that we've seen in terms of Israel using chemical weapons, including white phosphorus, against targets in the Middle East starting last year. So again, when we fast forward and look about this last year, there's been a lot of escalation across this region. Let's move on now to the United Kingdom. And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff, Sue Gray, has quit the role over concerns that growing news reports about her job risk becoming a distraction to the government. Gray's resignation came after reports about tensions between her and Starmer's chief advisor, Morgan McSweeney, and that she was earning more money than the Prime Minister, with Gray's annual salary reportedly being £170,000, which is about £3,000 more than Starmer's income. Gray said that she accepted a new role as Starmer's envoy for the regions and nations, while McSweeney, whom she had this feud with, will replace her as Chief of Staff at Downing Street. And if we move on to the African continent, there are some elections that are happening across the continent this week. In Mozambique, we know that it's set for a watershed election on Wednesday that will see a change of the presidential guard. For the first time, the once all-powerful Frelimo party is fielding a presidential candidate who was born after independence from Portugal. 47-year-old Daniel Chapo, who it hopes will rally voters fed up with the party's 49-year rule. He's hoping that he will be able to keep his party in power. However, a leading non-governmental organization in Mozambique reports that around 5% of the names on the voters' roll are fake or so-called ghost voters, and that constitutes nearly 900,000 people. Now, further, Mozambique's Central National Elections Commission shows that 878,868 more voters were registered than there are voting age adults in some provinces. So there have been accusations of irregularities. And then finally, in Tunisia, North Africa, voting has ended in a presidential election, which is expected to see incumbent Kais Saied secure another 5 years in office, while his main critics, including one contender, are behind bars. 3 years after Saied staged a sweeping power grab, rights groups fear the re-election will only further entrench his rule in the country, which, funnily enough, became the only democracy to emerge from those Arab Spring uprisings back in 2011. Back then, dictator Zine El Abidine Ben Ali was ousted in 2011. Tunisia then prided itself on being the birthplace of those regional revolts against authoritarianism. But the North African country's path changed dramatically soon after Saied's democratic election in 2019. Now, his power grab this 66-year-old Saeed, saw him rewrite the constitution and crack down on dissent, sparking criticism at home and abroad. Now, results in this election are expected at any moment since they stopped voting yesterday, but many people believe that he is a shoo-in to be re-elected once more.
I mean, I'm scared for Tunisia because Tunisia has gone back to another Ben Ali reincarnate. Ben Ali was about there for over 30 years, and we know how he and his family loomed large. And that's what Kais is doing here. You know, a lot of people thought he would bring in a new flair to Tunisia, you know, freedoms and all of that, but it's not done the same. He's cracked down on many people. He's even cracked down more on migrants. You know, if you remember the kerfuffle he had with, you know, West African descent migrants and things like that. As regards Mozambique, an interesting one. Let's see, if you go back to the independence struggle of the 70s, Frelimo and Renamo, two different ideologies, Western ideologies, rightly supported by America and the Soviet Union and all of that. And that has, you know, been the order of the day all this while. But the question is, you will ask strongly, did all of that fight for independence materialize in the development of that country? It leaves much to be desired. You know, and that's it. And as regards October 7, should it have happened in the first place? We can go over the stories of Israel had enough intelligence. What did they do about it? I believe Israel has a right to defend itself, but the question is that the context of proportionality of action, the decimation of Gaza, is that the way to go? I don't believe that. I mean, I was watching on Sky TV this morning, a child that was amputated. The child did not even know he had lost his leg. He was asking, said, "Mommy, give me a slipper to wear." And that's how sad things are. And the fact that you have more wars in this front, and like Trump has been calling for a third order, I don't believe it's the time to call or saying it's going to happen, but we need to stop all these wars, the fight in Russia and Ukraine and all of that, because what hurts me is that we spend so much on wars, but we don't spend so much on development. The Ukrainian GDP is about 150 billion. America is giving close to that amount in aid to Ukraine. We never spend that money on development. This war too has taken close to north of 50, 60 billion. If you put all of that together, it's going to over 200 billion been spent in the last 3 years on these wars. And the logistical crisis and the food crisis in the world. We don't need wars at this point in time. Only to think that we just came out of another world war with COVID that shut down the logistical interplay in the world and everything was at zero. And most economies are just coming out of high inflation. So please, let's give peace a chance.
Let's give peace a chance. Yeah, today, of course, we're going to be looking at, even across the show, the anniversary of that, shall I call it, historic invasion of Israel by Hamas. Now, Israel's prime minister at the time had described it as one of the greatest violations in terms of the killings of civilians, over 1,200 of them on the day. He even said that since the Holocaust, they haven't seen anything like this in terms of killings of civilians. However, I mean, retaliation since then, Israel has killed over 40,000 Palestinians. A lot of concerns around humanitarian efforts, aids, blocking of aids, and of course, different reactions from around the world. Some people pro, of course, saying that Israel has the right to defend itself. Hamas was the first to attack, but of course, this dates back. It's not just centuries of conflict. This was just part of that conflict that happened over the years. So the debate is still on as to who started first. But in terms of the scale of what escalated, what we now see as a threat to a third world war, a regional war in the Middle East, we would say that Hamas on this day launched that attack, and Israel hasn't held anything back. Their Western allies haven't, and no surprises there. They've said that they're going to support Israel's right to defend themselves. It would be great to see what the narrative today would be, and hoping that today's realization of how much has been lost on both sides might hopefully bring them to that table to discuss the possibility of a ceasefire, which is what a lot of people are calling for, including their allies. Now, moving on to the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, of course, the Conservatives have taken the opportunity to then say that it's a house of chaos. 100 days in, and you people are not, aren't getting yourself easy, from the economy to the fact that Sugre, your chief of staff, who left the civil service to join the Labour Party in 2023, is now said to be embroiled in at the center of the financial controversy. And then McSweeney, who was actually the leader of his campaign, has now stepped in as a result of, conflict. So it doesn't look very good for them, and they've given fodder to the Conservatives to attack them, to say that you guys don't have your house in order, and you're just running, being in shambles. But then it gives other people an opportunity, and she's not totally out of his government. No. She's still serving as an envoy, so she's still, her skills will still be put to good use in the Labour Party.
Okay, let me start from Africa.
Okay.
The real issues in Tunisia is that ahead of the elections, the government of President Said decided to change the framework, change the goalpost, which is something familiar in Africa. It robbed the administrative authority of its powers, oversight powers over the elections, now presenting the people more or less with a situation without, an oversight platform. That's number one. Number two, the other thing he did is that as we speak, over 170 persons are in jail or detention, in Tunisia, robbing them of an opportunity. 100 of them are members of the largest opposition party in Tunisia, the Ennahda. Now, the election was also marred with a lot of irregularities because Said wants to stay in power. Now, the projection, exit polls that we saw yesterday, projected that President Said is likely to be declared winner at some point today with 89.2% of the polls, with another opposition leaders taking maybe 3%, 4%. So, it will then be
a landslide for him.
He will have presented the people with a fait accompli. Now let's go to Mozambique. The big issue in Mozambique is that can Frelimo ever be taken out of power? Since 1975 independence, that Frelimo has been in charge. It's a Marxist leftist party, Soviet style. It has, a logo, ear of corn, and a drum. And if you go to Mozambique today, Maputo and everywhere, every roundabout, what you see is the image of Daniel Chapo and the colors of the Frelimo, not giving any chance to the Renamo, the Podemos, and the MDM parties. So the outcome of that election is foreseeable. And you see Daniel Chapo saying, forward, go to work. They've not gone to work in Mozambique since 1975 independence, in a country that is divided by gross inequality. Even the women that you see in Maputo, draped with the flags of Renamo, they say that they are paid to wear those flags. €2, the equivalent of food items for 1 day or 2 days. So the story that we see in Tunisia and in Mozambique is the crisis of democratic consolidation that we have in Africa. The fact that democracy, after that wave of democratization in the 80s, remains putative, fledgling, which is the other word that scholars use, in Africa. And that should give us a lot of concern that democracy is being tested in Africa, whether it is in Nigeria, or it is in Mozambique, or it is in Tunisia. Now to the UK, Sugre was earning up to £170,000,
yes.
£2,000, as you said, more than the Prime Minister. Now, there are a number of theories. One, that the allies of Morgan McSweeney are the ones who have done her in. So it looks like a coup in Labour. Number two, your sister, Kemi Badenoch, says that this is a clear evidence that Keir Starmer lacks good judgment. Number three, we're told that Sugre was not effective. It will be 100 days since Keir Starmer took over 3 months ago, this month, and he needed to make very strict decisions before that 100 days in office. Because he has had issues. It has been a dysfunctional Labour government, dysfunctional to the extent that the Labour Party conference in Liverpool was dominated by reports of Lord Wahid Ali giving the Prime Minister gifts and buying clothes for his wife. We are told that the Prime Minister is not happy that Sugre could not get on top of that. Now he has brought in Morgan McSweeney. Perhaps the man that led his campaign and brought him victory will be able to perform better in that particular responsibility. Sugre has been given a salary reduction and been given a reduced position as an envoy for the Prime Minister in the provinces and in nations.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your comments. Let's take a look now at newspaper headlines across the globe. And we begin in Nigeria with This Day newspaper, which features on its top stories a host of big stories that are happening, from the one-year anniversary of the Hamas attack to Rivers State Governor Sim Fubara saying desperate situations call for desperate measures. This is as the governor, as we know, swore in 23 local government chairmen and implores them not to misuse the power bestowed upon them. There's also an update on the floating of the Naira, with Central Bank Governor Olayemi Cardoso saying such floating is key to achieving forex market realities. Let's move on to the front page of the New Telegraph. And the New Telegraph leads with how the crisis in the Middle East is affecting Nigerians in the region. Their headline quotes the federal government saying that many Nigerians are unwilling to leave Lebanon. This is as the government makes plans to send an aircraft to Beirut. And it says that just 500 out of the 2,000 registered Nigerians in Lebanon have expressed a willingness to leave. Daily Trust looks at the growing concerns over Nigeria's security sector in the aftermath of a rise of illicit arms and ammunition, as well as drugs worth billions of naira being imported into Nigeria via land and water borders. The illegal arms, according to top security officers and experts, are partly responsible for the seemingly insurmountable security challenges across the country, particularly in the northwest and the northeast geopolitical zones. Now, some experts commended Nigeria's customs service for the successes it has recorded in the past few years by intercepting arms and ammunition that would have been used to continue destabilizing the country. Let's take a look at the front page of The Punch. And its front page focuses on the political crisis in Rivers as Wike loyalists head to court after Sim Fubara, the governor in Rivers State, swore in, as I said, 23 local government chairmen. The Action People's Party won 22 out of 23 chairmanship positions, while the Action Alliance candidate won that remaining seat. Now, addressing the new chairman at the swearing-in ceremony, Fubara urged them to emulate his approach to governance and to be patient and calculative despite mentioning the risk of attack as these newly elected members resume their duties today. The Guardian now looks at concerns over Nigeria's naira and the fair value of the currency after the Central Bank of Nigeria injected $2 billion to stabilize the market in an attempt to, as I said, stabilize the naira from its continuous depreciation. Let's take a look at some African papers. The Daily Nation of Kenya again looks at Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who is still fighting for his political life. He's asked for forgiveness as his team fight the impeachment motion against him. MPs are expected to vote on the matter on Tuesday, and we'll see if President William Ruto will play his hand to save his embattled deputy. The Daily Graphic of Ghana leads with the effort of the government to foster youth entrepreneurship. 3,000 young people have received starter packs and cash to enable them to start their own businesses after completing a course of training for 16 days. These efforts bring together more than 30 public and private sector companies and institutions. Ghana will head to the polls to elect its new president on December 7th. And Daily Mail has joined a chorus of British dailies who lead with Sue Gray's departure as Keir Starmer's chief of staff within the first 100 days of the Labour Party's leadership. As Dr. Reuben said, Kemi Badenoch, who we now know is also in the running to become leader of the Conservative Party, says that Starmer's decision to hire Gray when she was a neutral civil servant displayed a disastrous lack of integrity.
Okay.
And judgment.
And judgment. Let me not misquote.
At least Kemi's not blasting Nigeria again this time. Right?
Not this time. And her comments last week about, wiping bottoms and how the UK should have real skills and all of that. So.
How she lived in fear, living in Nigeria, watching out for her window.
Mark Sweeney has no government experience.
Well,
Sue Gray, was a civil servant. So this new man has no government experience. He's politically smart, but let's see how he manages Keir Starmer.
I've got a quick word for Kemi. Kemi, you say you lived in fear in Nigeria. At least we don't have the moped guy that come to snatch your phone in central London. Oh. All right? We don't have the guys that knife and glass you.
On knife crimes.
On knife crimes. We don't have that much here,
All right.
Yeah.
You have something bigger than knife crime.
This is for Nigeria today. We don't have knife crimes.
You have something bigger than knife crime.
We would love Kemi to come over to the morning show and discuss her plans for the future. That would be lovely.
Come for it.
Thank you, Adefemi.
You're welcome.